Great to see you. You haven't changed a bit.
Oh, well, I don't know about that. And you're looking good. You're getting
Y-
in some walking.
Yeah, I just took a long walk and a few minutes ago. Beautiful day here.
We have had some beautiful weather as well. It's been a little unseasonably warm, but it's been a gorgeous fall.
Yeah, here too, mostly. We had a little snowfall a couple, three or four, about 3 weeks ago, but other than that, it's 75 here today, so that's nice.
Okay. Oh boy. Yeah. So I am sitting in the office. I don't get here every day. It's been interesting. It's kind of fun to get back into the office, a couple days a week and sit here on the river and watch life continue.
Right.
Um, but otherwise, we've been extremely busy. This is going to be our best year for conservation projects ever.
Well, that's great.
Mhm.
It's really great. It's sometimes hard to imagine from where we started, but
Well, yeah. Well, tell me a little bit. I wanted to have a chance to visit with you like this and to get your reflections. This is our 30th anniversary.
hell, that's exciting, and it's hard to believe in many ways that that much time has gone by. I remember all of it well, I think.
Yes, yes. I remember our first meeting, and I think that was about 2000, just the end of 2005.
Yes, your father, I knew your father and served with him on the Aztec Coastal Trust Board. And, in chatting with him, I learned a little bit about what you were doing and how you were a little bit unhappy with what you were doing. And we were then in the throes at the Lower Shore Land Trust, what was just a few of us uh, in trying to find, an executive director or somebody to help lead us into the future. And I had been tasked with uh, giving a last interview to someone for the job and to hire them. If the interview went all right and everybody was agreeable, but I was not happy with the person. I don't think any of us were really, we had advertised, or I don't know how we actually had advertised it, but uh, I was talking to your father after a nasty Coastal Trust meeting, and he mentioned you, and I said, "Hey, ask her to come to my office." And you did, and I met you, and I said, "Hey, this is who we need," to myself. And so I went back to the other members of the board and talked them into it. And next thing we know, we had Kate Patton on board, and that was a real restart for us uh, from some floundering in the beginning. There always is, and so that from there on, the organization really took off.
Well, you were involved in so much of the land protection goals for the state. I believe you were involved with the Maryland Environmental Trust and also starting some of the other land trusts in the state, weren't you?
Yes, I was on the board of the Maryland Environmental Trust for almost 50 years, um, 40 some years. And back from from about 1970. And it was a really interesting, it was not involved in land conservation when I went on the board. It had the Keep Maryland Beautiful program, and it had a part-time director, and it was funded by the state, but with a self-perpetuating board. And I'd done a lot of thinking and reading about various methods of conservation, and I started reading some articles about conservation easements were then really just sort of a dream kind of thing. There were two states, Massachusetts and Virginia, who were starting up programs. And so I proposed to the board of the Maryland Environmental Trust that we do that. And they agreed it was a good idea, and we had to get the General Assembly to pass a law making sure that these these trust agreements would be enforceable in perpetuity, which was a problem at common law. So that so we did that, and we got it passed, and we started into the easement business. And it was exciting because, I mean, now we have hundreds of thousands of acres in Maryland, including many, including my own farm here with the Lower Shore Land Trust and the Maryland Environmental Trust. And it was really an exciting, decades of work that I was involved in with them. And the Eastern Shore Land Conservancy started up, and with actually a former employee of the Maryland Environmental Trust as its director. And I thought the time was maybe right for us to be able to do it here. And together with a couple people from the faculty at Salisbury State University and a few other people, we got the Lower Shore Land Trust formed and going, and we had a sort of a volunteer part-time director for as one of the teachers from the college there. We took that job on, and we were off and running.
That's right. So, when I came in, I guess the organization had been operating for about 16 years, roughly, on and off. And, we started slow and steady, and it's been almost 15 years since I've been on board.
Well, that has made a big difference to the organization, Kate, and I'm glad that you've been willing to stick with it.
There have been times.
I graduated from Wicomico High School, and then I was away for about 12 years. And I lived in some big cities, Paris, New York, and a medium-sized city, Charlottesville, Virginia. And when I got married after starting work with a big law firm in New York City, thinking about raising a family, we decided to sort of reject the big city and all of its advantages and disadvantages. So I still like cities, but to move to the Eastern Shore, and we bought a farm, and I started practice of law there. But the one thing I really had gained an appreciation of is, of the shore's being is really made up of its waterways, its farms, its marshes, and its rivers and the ocean and the bay. And it's so threatened. It's still threatened, and by all the megapolis, around us, from Norfolk to Washington to Baltimore to Philadelphia to Wilmington. It's kind of a circle. We're encircled with millions of people. So it really struck me, and that's why I became involved with the Maryland Environmental Trust and what was then the Committee to Preserve Assateague, and we formed the Wicomico Environmental Trust. I was involved in that years ago. It faltered at one point and then had to be reformed a little later. But I really felt that that's the essence of the place. And if we destroy the essence and we don't protect it, it will be gone. And so I've always been a big supporter of farming. I was one of the founders with Harry Hughes of the Ecology Center, the Hughes, now called the Hughes Agroecology Center, which is affiliated with the University of Maryland. It's kind of a think tank for research on environmental issues. And in addition to the other, organizations locally. So it's been something I've really believed in, and I felt was just so important to us and for future generations to preserve as much of this as we can. And it's important economically as well. I mean, how are we going to attract businesses if we don't have a place that you want to come to? So it is, and it was a hard battle early on. I mean, you can't believe they wanted to, of course, develop Aztec Island. You wanted to get another ocean city there. I was involved in a case representing citizens in Worcester County for opposing a development on the opposite shore of Aztec Island in Worcester County near Newark. We're going to build a whole city there. And they rezoned, thousands of acres, and we won that case. But it was hard getting local people interested in the Lower Shore area at first. It was felt that, we needed development. And there's of course truth to that, but the question is where it goes and what it is. One of my big disappointments has been we haven't kept up with the zoning protections that we need in Wicomico County. It's been something that I spent a lot of time trying to accomplish, and I've always regretted that we were never fully successful. But that's true with all these issues, It's an ongoing thing. There's no magic bullet in conservation. It's, one step at a time, one thing at a time, one convert at a time. And that's what it takes.
You have your fingers in a lot of different organizations. What's exciting for me is the staff that we have right now is also involved in a lot of different organizations. Josh Hastings, our deputy director, is now on the board of the Hughes Agroecology Center. So the Lower Shore Land Trust and the Lower Shore itself, I think, was just down far enough on the shore that we were often forgotten. So people could pretty much do what they wanted out here. But I think that it's been realized recently that this is a really important part of the Delmarva Peninsula. We're kind of that linchpin in between the Virginia coast, the Virginia shore, and then Delaware. And then we have the coastal bays on one side and the Chesapeake Bay on the other. So, you really have to go through the Lower Shore to get anywhere. But it's also a really critical hub for commerce and for recreation and for development and for business and for agriculture. So there is a lot going on here and a lot of potential resources that are starting to flow this way for conservation. I think our biggest challenge right now is making sure that there are young people that really care about the environment and care about, this beautiful place that we live in.
Well, that's right. I certainly agree with all of that, Kate. And it's the younger people haven't always stuck with haven't picked up as much the environmental issues as some of the others, but that's where the future lies, and that's where we have to go. And this idea that we can, freedom means we can do whatever we want, wherever we want. We have to save a little bit as we go along. We have to save a lot, and it's hard to imagine the value of it. Even Ocean City, who felt that, they didn't have to be involved in environmental things, is realizing the importance, of having land around them saved. I mean, it helps tourism. It gives them some options of things to do when they come and stay for a week or 2 weeks in Ocean City. They can come over there to beautiful Snow Hill.
Absolutely.
The Wicomico River, and that there's a lot of synergy now between economic development and saving land in addition to the farming, which is still a big, big thing to us economically. So I've always been a great supporter of farming. I think that, using our open space productively in a way that doesn't take it away from being open space, is really important. And it's a key thing. I've always felt the farming community would be our allies. That's been slow in coming, partly because of other environmental issues. The word environment sometimes to a farmer is a difficult thing, but they are the stewards of it, of most of it.
Yeah, I think that we've worked hard to make alliances with the agricultural community. I think our first challenge when I started was recognizing that the foresters were a little bit leery of the organization. And boy, we came a long way with our forestry friends. And I think having Larry Walton on the board initially and Tony DiPaolo replacing him when Larry retired really introduced us to a lot of folks around the shore. So that's been really helpful for our, awareness, educating just our staff and board, but also then allows us to reach out to supporters of the organization and share information about the industry. And I think that has to happen also with agriculture. One of the things that we're looking at right now as we look into the future is how can we be more engaged in best management practices on conservation lands, on agricultural lands, because there's been a gap in this area. There's just not enough, work that's being done. So we're looking at how we can be more effective in helping leverage funds for farmers.
Well, that's important. And we have to realize farming does include forestry. We're farming trees or we're farming other plants. And forestry is important. There's an environmental benefit to having trees too. We all know that. So that it's all part of it. And of course, now we have the threat of a sea level rise, which to the Eastern Shore is going to be a growing issue, and as to where we put our development and how we adjust our conservation goals as some of the land gets swallowed up.
Sure, it's not a very popular topic. We've been working with a lot of landowners that are terribly concerned. A lot of folks don't want to admit to it. So it's all different responses when that topic comes up. And, our focus is on resiliency and doing all of those best practices that can help alleviate some of the problems. But there's a long-term issue that needs to be addressed.
Well, when you see the maps that they've done, with predict, if sea level rises 3 inches, 6 inches, 1 foot, what parts, where will the inundation come, and what will be the result, as that progresses. It's really kind of scary. You see parts of Dorchester County and Somerset County, particularly, really tremendously affected. So that this is you're right that it's very difficult to get people to focus on that, and it affects some of the potential terms of our conservation easements as well. I know I was involved in one in Somerset County, and we put a provision in it. It was at an historic house, that the house could be picked up and moved to another location, on the property to save the historic house, because it was close to the water. But anyway, this is a growing issue, and it's hopefully, we can get community involvement in all of our organizations and maintain it. It's been one of the strengths, I think, of our community, and I know in Salisbury and in Berlin and Snow Hill, as well as local organizations, the service clubs, the other kinds of organizations, of all stripes, which have brought our citizens in contact with, the issues that Can't just leave it to government and a few people. It's really important, and that's where our future political leaders get their training and being on boards and how to deal with people and how to get things accomplished, to chair meetings, to do all of those things. Um, so it's an important thing.
Well, if you had, something that you wanted to see that the land trust could accomplish, or a thought for going forward, and something that we could accomplish for Wicomico and the rest of the Lower Shore, would there be anything that you would want?
Well, I mentioned zoning, and it is difficult subject in a sense because it is a politically active thing. You're talking about getting government to do something, which is a little different than asking a landowner to do something as a voluntary act, like giving a conservation easement. And sometimes it's difficult to accomplish all of these projects together, but there is a great interrelationship. You can't use conservation easements to conserve all the land that should be conserved. And you can't do it completely by zoning. And you can't do it completely by purchase. So you have all of these different programs. You have to have all of these approaches at once. And I know that you're involved with some of the purchase programs like CREP, and I have a farm in Wicomico County which has a CREP easement on part of it. So it's an interesting thing to try to figure out how all of these different things can be used to create the goal, which is the Lower Shore Land Trust goal of conserving, land for future generations, for farming, for use, for our visual pleasure, for us to not to ride by, for us to use for economic development. So it's a really tough balance, and I think zoning is one of them that has been sort of like picking up a hot plate sometimes, but it is something that is important and should not be put aside. Once the organization now, it seems to me, is maybe strong enough to start thinking more about that.
You're absolutely right, and it's been an area that we've been able to make headway into. We have more capacity with our staff right now to be able to weigh in, take the time to really understand what is in the comprehensive plans, where they need to be revised, where we can make allies along the way. And then the fact of going back and looking at the zoning and how it matches the comprehensive plan is another process that requires attention. So we're happy that we're able to be more invested at this point. We're not just one person running around and putting a few fingers in the dike and doing one thing, but having really a very invested staff and an excited board of directors right now.
Well, that's great, because actually, getting this base, we started the Lower Shore Land Trust with just, the people running it. You need a base, and you've gotten it. You've gotten it gives you financial support, but it's even bigger than that. It's public support and public support for what you're doing. And more people know about what you're doing, and that there is a way for them to participate. There's a way for them to take part. So that is, I think, the big step that the organization has made. I mean, that is the big important step from the beginnings of the organization, is the support that you've gained in throughout the community, the Lower Shore community. I know it's also the result of your board, but it's the result of your efforts as well, Kate. And We can't thank you enough.
Well, I can't thank you enough.
I should be interviewing you, Kate.
I don't know about that. This has been really, really fun to catch up. And, I learn something new every time I talk with you, and a little bit about, the different organizations that you've been involved with. And it's so obvious to me how much you've cared and how much you've invested over the years.
Well, the human spirit's an important thing. And I was the founding president of the Arts Council in Wicomico County. And, it goes to somewhat the same thing, another aspect of, the human existence. But we can't just live on TV in our living rooms. We have to have a little bit outside, and we have to tend to the human spirit.
I love that. It's great. Thank you. Well, I think we have seen more than ever having places to go outside and enjoy the outdoors and enjoy this beautiful place that we live in has been wonderful. And, so many people have come here this summer and fall that it's been really overloaded. I mean, we need more places to go. We need more places for people to get outside and hike and recreate. Things are changing. It's not just all hunting, although we still have hunting. There's so many different ways to experience the outdoors and to experience this spirit of life.
Well, we're in preserving land with conservation easements. We don't always tend to that need that you're expressing, and that is a place where the public can go. And I've really been struck with that living here in Massachusetts, in the little town that I live in. I say little town, there's one town next to each other up there. There are a lot of farms in my town, but there's a lot of land that is owned by the town itself, conservation land, which is not developed, but has trails. And so there's much more attention paid to that up here, and letting the trees grow right by the road. They don't cut down trees up here, and you better drive carefully on these country roads. And so it's from the air, you can't even really see that they're houses, spread around. But the having conservation property that people can enjoy is very important. Now, private landowners, of course, don't want them on their property. And you can't blame them for that. I didn't want them traipsing across my farm. But we need that kind of land, the open space land that is not highly developed as a park with swings in it, but parks that are, for nature lovers, that will help support the tourist industry as well, which is important to us as well as ourselves. So that's another aspect, I guess, of another aspect of the conservation movement, so to speak, that has to be tended to.
Well,
and that's going to require public money mainly.
Well, I'm pleased that we've been able to do at least one public easement with the city of Salisbury to date, the Naylor Mill Forest.
Yes.
And I think you're absolutely right. This is an opportunity for the land trust in the future, and we're paying close attention. We want to have really a reserve of funds so that we see when an opportunity comes up that we can, really jump on it.
Yes, we have a land conservation organization in this town I live in, Stowe, Massachusetts, and they're privately funded, and they have hold easements on a lot of property, as well as, and of course there's a statewide organization, Trustees of the Reservation, it's called. It's one of the oldest such organization in the country. So in Maryland, we have probably is the best public programs almost of any state, with the different programs from, to preserve agricultural land, to preserve,
Right,
important
rural
lands,
legacy and
so forth.
now, sure.
Rural legacy, right. So those are all available, and the support for those programs is, of course, another thing that's important for the Lower Shore Land Trust to do. To support them on the state level. And increasingly, conservation funds are available through various federal programs, as you know, and you work with some of those. So it's complicated. It's complicated.
Right.
But that's what our system is. We're going to have to do complicated work with complicated programs, and figure out how to use them.
Mm-hmm. Well, with our staff right now, we've got over 40 years of experience. So
There we
I think
go.
that's important with the land conservation.
Well,
Yeah,
it's amazing how these time goes by. Uh,
yeah, it
well,
is.
I miss you all, and I miss being directly involved. But there's a time in life for everything.
Yeah, it's great to see you and to have your support. And I wish you well.
Thanks.
Take
Talk to you
care.
again soon.
Okay, King. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.